What's going on, everybody? This is Dalton Young with the Honest Providers Podcast and Honest Care Systems. And today I'm with my friend Nick, who is going to, share with us a little bit about his experiences in the industry, both in behavioral health and you have a recovery center in Jacksonville and Tampa, I believe.
I do, yeah. We started here in Jacksonville and we expanded to Tampa a couple of years ago.
Okay, awesome. So what do you primarily do in your facilities? What is your primary focus?
So we're a substance use disorder primary treatment facility. So all of our clients that come to us are struggling with some form of addiction, whether that's alcohol or drugs. And then we're also dual diagnosis with mental health. So, we try to work on trying to understand, identify, and solve for, those things that we're struggling with that caused us to do that in the first place. And we do that at the PHP and IOP level of care, which just means that our clients are, they drive in, they come to us, and they're with us either 3 or 6 hours a day, Monday through Friday, but they either live in sober living or at home, hopefully in a supportive environment.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, a lot of people when they hear substance use, a lot of people don't necessarily equate, if they're not in a clinical setting, they don't necessarily equate it with behavioral health. And the two together, and the two really often go hand in hand, and something we see a lot as well. So, what inspires you to start the recovery center?
Yeah, so my background, I grew up in Jacksonville. I went to West Point undergrad, and I spent my 20s in the Army chasing bad guys in Afghanistan and Iraq. I got out of the Army in 2008, went to business school, and kind of tried to find my way in business, in entrepreneurship. Started a business in pet cremation, of all things, which was wildly successful. Unfortunately, I was struggling. I was struggling with alcohol. I was struggling with drugs. I was struggling with depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation. And, it got to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. And, I made a decision that day to go to rehab instead. And that really started my journey, my personal journey. I'd love to say that was the last time I had a drink, and that's not the case. It took me a couple times.
Sure.
But after the second time in rehab, I went to Cambodia for about 3 months and just studied meditation and yoga full time there, which was awesome. And, wanted to come back to Jacksonville to start somewhere that would be designed to help other people who were struggling with the same kind of stuff that I was. And so that's why we started Sophros. That's our why, is to help clients regain their lives. And I feel that if we do a good job with that, if we are successful in helping people regain their lives, we treat everyone with dignity and respect and understanding and meet them where they're at, then we'll grow a business over time. But I feel like that's an output rather than an input.
Absolutely. It's amazing how, our life experiences can, tie back into what our path, our purpose, right? Because it's ultimately that why is what makes you successful in business. It makes you successful in helping other people. It's more than just a job or a business. It's why do we get up every day and do what we do? Because as most people probably don't understand unless they're in this space, it's a very emotionally, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of emotion, and it's a very draining industry. So we have a lot of, you see a lot of clinicians burn out simply based off, they're so busy pouring into everybody else's cups that they forget to pour into their own. So totally understand that.
And I think we have a lot more capacity to give when it comes from a place of why. It doesn't mean it's unlimited, right? We still get burned out. We still deal with all of these things. But our capacity when we're excited about the passion, when we're excited about the mission, is so much higher. My teacher in Cambodia once referred to it. I used that analogy with him of like, when your cup gets full and you can't handle anymore. And he said, well, it shouldn't be a cup in the first place. It should be more like a pipe where you flow the water into the top and then the water flows out. So like, how are we releasing at the same time that we're giving? And I was like, well, that's okay. That's a good point. Easier said than done, I think, but I like the analogy.
Love it. You've experienced a lot of things. You've seen different sides of, being on both sides of the fence has allowed you to see it from different perspectives than a lot of other people. What in the industry, what did you see or witness that wanted to make you want to do things differently when you started your own recovery center?
I mean, the first thing I would say is that I saw what right can look like. I had the pleasure, and I'll just name it. I went to Aton Center in San Diego for
Okay.
rehab, and no working affiliation with them other than that it was a great place to help me get well. And so I saw what a great treatment center can look like, and I realized not everyone has access to that.
Right.
They did take insurance, so anyone with commercial insurance has access. But even then, those places like that aren't all over the country. And when I came back, I spent about a year. It was during COVID, so I had some time to think. And so I came back from Cambodia, and I was looking at the space, and I saw all these treatment centers. I saw a lot that were doing things the wrong way. I saw some that were doing things the right way, but what I didn't see was a lot of providers doing things the right way at the PHP IOP level of care. And as I thought about my relapses, it was really because I wasn't working a program after rehab. My rehab was great, but
Right.
I wasn't working a program after rehab. And so,
Continuity. Yeah.
yeah, and PHP IOP is really the area where you're trying to learn how to live life and not use, right? You're trying to
Right.
live life and stay sober and take care of your mental health. And so you have to learn how to do those things together. And, it was really easy for me in the bubble of rehab, but outside the bubble, it's very hard. It's harder, I think, for me anyway.
Right.
And so, what I found was within this level of care, the residential level of care and a detox, those are big dollars. And with big dollars comes big investment and comes private equity firms. And not to say that those are the ones that are always doing it right, because they're not, but at least there's investment in the space. Whereas with us, I found two things. One, you either had passionate people that didn't know how to run a treatment center well, or you had these kind of private equity plays that were just doing it as an afterthought, like to add extra dollars. It was like the McDonald's fries, it
Yeah.
was their add-on,
It was the add-on. Yeah.
and nobody's paying attention to that. No, it's not that important to them, right? And so they're not, and they're used to big dollars, right? They're used to like residential and detox dollars, and so they kind of put these together on a shoestring, and they were an afterthought, and so they weren't doing it well. So you had these one operators that really cared, that didn't know how to run a business, and then you had guys that are agnostic to the why, potentially, or at least more agnostic to the why, but they had the operating savvy, but they just didn't care, and they didn't care about this level of care. And so I felt like if we came in and we focused on this and we said, this is what we do, and we do this better than anyone, that we'd be able to provide a better client experience.
Absolutely. The IOP level is something that often gets it's an aftercare for let me put it this way. It's crucial to have it because a lot of people go into that recovery center. You're in your 30-day detox, right? You're in a setting. It's a lot more controlled. It's a lot more potentially clinical in nature, right? Whereas you hit that IOP, you're transitioning out, and you were talking about the military earlier. It's kind of like when you're getting out of the military, they have that transition period for like, take this course, learn this skill, learn how to basically become a civilian, right?
Yeah.
And it's a similar thing. You're transitioning. You're sober, you're clean, but you're at your most vulnerable. And after that, let's just say 30 days. I mean, I know there's 90 days and stuff, but like just most people run through that 30-day. And what's next? What's that next step look like? And if you do end up going to a sober living, you're with a lot of other individuals who are also at a very vulnerable spot. So all it takes is like one to relapse, and it creates a domino effect sometimes. And I'm not saying that the inpatient facilities want that, but the private equity that is backing those facilities sees a repeat customer at times. Not
Sure.
all of them, but it's something that has to be considered because money is always involved, right? Or else a lot of these facilities wouldn't exist. So, and that can influence certain individuals or certain firms, right? I do see a lot of people working on the ground that are in these facilities. It's not a paycheck. They're there because they love it. They love what
For
they do.
sure.
That passion is there, especially your clinicians, like your LCSWs, your caseworkers. They're there typically because they love what they do.
And I think the challenge is, you get these people on the ground that love what they do, but then there's little micro decisions that you make that influence their ability to execute on that. So like, for example, like, how do you think about therapist caseload? Do you make it 14 or do you make it 18? Well, 18 is more profitable, right? You're going to make more money at 18. So how many do you make it? You make it as many as you can without losing census. That's like the pure financial answer, right? And so, when you have a responsibility to clients, but you also have a responsibility to limited partners to achieve a certain level of return, I think that can create a really weird incentive problem. Which, I've got some people that are invested in Sophros, but they're friends and family, so it's, they're not sure they want, one day they'd love to make money, but they're not short-sighted, and they don't care about immediate returns and stuff like that. They're doing that to support me and to support what we're doing. And so it's a little different dynamic.
Love it. Yeah, it's a complex business model, and having the right people involved with it is super important, as well as not being limited and in the way you're looking at it. So I agree with you completely. So you launched the Recovery Center, and you've seen a lot while you've been in it. What do you think really, y'all are doing it the right way? You're doing it as ethical as possible, as honest as possible. What do you think could change in the industry for things to truly improve, for other people to be able to provide care at the level that y'all provided at?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm sure I have a wish list.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges that we face is just the way insurance reimbursement is structured. There's this constant talk in the industry, and I've heard it since 2021 when we opened, that we were going to move to value-based care models, that the quality of the treatment was going to dictate and determine how you're reimbursed, which totally makes sense. Even if just from a purely financial standpoint, it makes sense, right? It's like, if you buy a nice German automobile, you expect it to perform well, but because it performs well, you're willing to spend more. I think this industry has been so long-standing on this reimbursement per day model, and so it's like, well, this is our reimbursement per day for this zip code, and it's like, well, but that treatment isn't effective. Like, why is someone that has those 25 clients on their caseload and doesn't provide any tools and doesn't have an alumni program and is going to result in relapse and readmissions to hospitals and all of those things, like, why do they have the same rate of reimbursement? It's not because I want to make more money. I just want to be able to invest, right? And so it's hard to invest in quality care when, no one's willing to pay you for it, right? So I'm hoping that we will move in that direction, but I've been told that it was imminent for 5 years now. So I'm losing a little hope on the imminence of value-based care. But there are some companies that are working on the fringes that work with employers who have self-paid plan, Carum Health and a few others, where what they're trying to do is like say, okay, insurance companies might be slow to move, but some of these large companies are faster moving, and they want to pay for good treatment. So let's identify who those people are and figure out just a side deal with them where it's like, okay, here's the pricing for your company, and like they're gonna be on the hook, and if you readmit, they're gonna treat you for free or a discount.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of, especially on the aftercare side, it's you can you have your certain, and especially like even looking at like Medicaid, right? Because there's a lot of people that are even on Medicaid that are especially going through these treatment programs, and they're in a spot where some states don't pay as much as other states, right? Because it's all state-based, right? And then there's other states that they're really invested in recovery. For example, you may be limited to 15 hours a week for an IOP, right? But you can squeeze out another 10 hours of essentially group therapies or holistic approaches to really continue furthering that treatment and ingraining that, not just in a clinical setting or a teletherapy setting, but like an outdoor setting, or develop those skills you learned in Cambodia, right?
Yeah, I love it.
To tie that in with the treatment, we've seen that do wonders. And again, sometimes it depends on the location they're in and what those reimbursement rates are, what do those per diems or those limits look like, right? Because not every state treats the same. The treatment you got in California is not going to be the same treatment you get in Florida, right? Based off the laws, if you're primarily talking about Medicaid. But with that said, yeah, we do this podcast. It reaches people from all walks of life. Sometimes they're clinicians, other owners, sometimes they're families, friends, or people who have also been in the same shoes you were in. If you could share any piece of advice with them on what doing this kind of work looks like the right way, what would you tell them to look for?
Um, look for in terms of a treatment center, like what to be looking for.
Sure, we can do that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the first things that I always like to tell people is like go to Google reviews, right? And don't just look for the star rating, like read the reviews because people can stuff those full of other stuff and like filter by 1 stars, read those first. See what people are saying. Are there any consistent themes that I should be worried about? Um, if you know someone that's been through treatment, ask them what the reputation is or what their experience was. Go to social media and say, hey, go find a rehab type place and say, what are the reputations? I'm looking at potentially sending my family member here, or I'm looking at potentially going here. Does anyone have any feedback based on experience? And try to see what people say, because I think that the client experience says a lot, about the place. I would say, go on a tour, look at a couple places. Like, don't just pick the first place that comes up. If you're a family member, you might only get one shot with your family member to go in somewhere. So you go to 2 or 3 places first, look at them, pick the best one, and then bring them there. Because you bring them to one place, and that's going to be it. And I think for this is just more generalized advice, but if you are struggling and you are going through this yourself, like, one of my favorite quotes that I heard at rehab was, nothing changes if nothing changes. And so if we keep doing the same stuff, it's like, how many times have we promised not to drink again? How many times have we promised I'm only going to drink on the weekends, or I'm only going to have 3, or I'm not going to drink anymore? And then we go back on it. Right. And so we think, we have this belief that this willpower can get us through. And the reality is that it can't. And so we have to, well, for some people it can, but you have to ask yourself, has that been true for you? Have you been able to get through this with that? And if the answer is no, then like we're dealing with a chronic brain disease and we need treatment. Just like if we were dealing with diabetes, we'd need insulin. If we were dealing with a heart issue, we'd need a cardiologist. If you're dealing with this, you need treatment. It is what it is. It's nothing shameful about it. It's just like any other health. I mean, mental health is health. And so, if I would go see an orthopedic specialist for my knee, I can go see a treatment center for my substance use.
Absolutely. And I heard it, I can't remember the exact quote, but I heard it the other day, was that, we try, people go through treatment. People hold themselves accountable, I guess, or they hold themselves, they feel guilty about it. Like, I'm trying to get sober and I relapsed, right? But they forget all the times that they basically were struggling before, and that, it took a long time to get into rehab. And it may take several times to stay out of rehab. And I forget exactly how it went, but it was a good quote. I wish I had it in front of me because I would love to look into it.
I love it.
There's so many, I think a lot of people need to, and this goes for people who are needing care themselves or family, friends, just understand it's a process, right? It takes time. It will take, or it may take, but most likely will take multiple attempts. And even if it doesn't, which is the goal, we don't want it to take multiple attempts. We want it to be one and done. But with that said, it doesn't just go away, right? This is something you have to kind of stay on top of long term. With I think a lot of people see it's kind of like someone goes into a program, and then when they get out, you're like, oh, they're clean, everything's great now. Like, you still have to ensure that those needs are being met, that you're communicating with them, and figure out what tools they learned while they were in there and continue practicing them as a family, right? Because sometimes these things can come back down the road. It may not be immediate, right? But especially when it comes in the world of like self-harm, or I've seen it with own family members before, where it's like it just kind of comes in waves. You know what I mean? Like, one day you're good, 1 week you're good, 1 month you're good, then the next month is not good, right? So it's just always about paying attention to their needs and understanding that it's a process. It's usually not a quick fix.
And I mean, for me, as an overview, I mean, if I'm not seeing my teacher from Cambodia, at least every other week, if I'm not seeing a therapist at least every other week, if I'm not seeing a couples counselor, if I'm not going to meetings, if I'm not talking to my sponsor, if I don't have sponsees, if I'm not doing, meditation, like the amount of stuff that I do in a week just for myself is insane. And like, I think it's the bare minimum that I have to do to stay okay and to stay healthy, not just stay sober, but also to stay mentally healthy. And that's okay. I get to do that work. I have the pleasure of having to do it. Not everybody does. And because I have to do it, I show up, I don't say better than other people, but I show up as the best version of myself. And, if you're not putting 5 or 10 hours a week into yourself, it's a disadvantage. So it's a good thing that I have to do that. But if I don't do that, I might not be in trouble today. I might not be in trouble in 3 months, but in a year, it's going to catch up with me,
But the fact that you're actively working on yourself constantly, even though things are going good, right? Even though everything's going great, the fact that you continuously work on yourself sets the example and the tone for those that are coming in to your recovery centers to say, hey, we all understand what you're going through. We understand how you feel in a roundabout way, and we're going to work with you long term to give you the tools, not just the tools now, but the tools to be successful for life. We've talked a lot about your journey, your history, kind of where you were and where you are now. If looking back, what is probably the thing you're most proud of?
Oh man, great question. I guess just that I didn't give up. Yeah. I feel like, maybe there was a God moment when I was suicidal, and, I don't necessarily mean giving up in that regard, because I think there's more to it than that when it comes to, dying by suicide. But I think about all the times that I struggled, and all the times that I struggled with relapse, and the times that I didn't feel like I was doing okay, or, and that I was able to come back, and I was able to come back to the rooms, and I was able to come back to my program, and I feel like it's not, it's great when people are a one-chip wonder and they come in and they're sober for 40 years, like, God bless them. That's not my story. And, for me, staying sober is important, and staying sober is a value that I hold. But when I think about what I'm most proud of, it's that I didn't give up when I didn't. At some point, something inside me said, hey, like, this isn't the life. It's time to get back on it. And, sometimes it was my own volition. Sometimes it was other people pushing me. Right. But regardless, it was my decision in the end, to do something different. And so, I would hope that as things come up in my life, and as struggles come up, and God forbid relapse again, hopefully not. But as things come up, I would hope that, I keep coming back, I keep getting up, I keep moving on. And I think that's what I'm most proud of for myself. And then of course, every time we get feedback from a client, like, I did a lot of damage when I was in active addiction. I hurt a lot of people. But I can say with 100% certainty that if offsetting that is possible, I've done so 100-fold. There have been lives changed and lives saved, and, I played a role in that. I won't take full credit for it because it's not mine to take, but if we didn't exist, and if Sophros didn't exist, like, some of those people wouldn't have gotten well. And those are families that are reunited. Those are workplaces that are more effective. Those are people that are alive, kids that have a father. And so for me, or a mother. And so for me, that's the other thing that I'm proud of.
Yeah. That's being proud of yourself is a big piece of being successful. I feel like, again, we're in a space that's very rewarding in its own way. And, I'm right there with you. I could tell you stories like, you have the person that's, they're on the streets and they're this close to not making it. And then you're saving lives. You really are, you know what I mean? And the business that you're in, what you're doing is truly impactful because you are changing lives. And you may not be able to we can't always go back, but we can always change the direction we're going forward. And that's
100%.
That's really what you've done with your program, with your recovery centers is really, how can we change the future and be a better version of ourselves today and tomorrow, one step at a time? How can we stay sober one step at a time, right? So I really love what you guys are doing over there. A lot of great things, and it's purpose driven. And I think that's really what's driving that impact and that success. So I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today and share your story and everything you're doing over there.
Thank you very much.
If someone wanted to find you online, where would be the good place for them to connect with y'all?
Yeah, the best thing is just sophrosrecovery.com. The spelling's under my head here. SOPHROS recovery.com. And you can find our Tampa site on there too if you're close to that. Give us a call, but you can find us on the website. And, we do have locations in Jacksonville and Tampa, but we also service clients virtually throughout the state at the IOP level. So, anyone in Florida, but if you're not inside Florida and you have any questions or anything that we can help with or need help finding a place, we're happy to help. So we're in this industry to help people. So.
Absolutely. And we'll include these links in the description or the comments below. Also, they're on Instagram and I believe Facebook, same name, correct?
Yep. Everything's at Sophros Recovery.